one of the problems that you see in the film is this inability of people to take the problem seriously for a very long time until it's basically too late. And there's two sides to that, I think, which is one, you have a population that thinks everything is entertainment, thinks everything is a performance, that everything is kind of like this regular human attempt to maximize your own gain. Even in the beginning, the president says when they present like, yeah, this is fucking bad, we're going to need to do something about it, here's things we could do. She says, okay, so what's the sell? You know, this idea of like, okay, you know, here we go. What do you want? Here's what I'll give you. You know, this kind of like bargaining that we think is everyday life. Exactly. But there's another element to this, which is people don't take the problem seriously. There's something
briefly on that point, though, and this is what I was trying to get at, right? And I don't think this is too difficult to understand. And this is why the scientist fails. It seems to me that a person that knows anything could have answered that question really simply and said, the sell is you're going to be able to be the hero that saves the world. And here's how you're going to do it. You have to talk to people based on what their motivations are. That seems so obvious. And maybe that's a political mindset. And I understand the little scientist doesn't know because he can't express himself hardly even during that meeting. But do you see, it's like this, like.
That's an interesting point, because what you're essentially saying is, why didn't he take ownership of the problem differently? So there's
just use a little psychology.
Well, there's a difference there in the decision about how this problem should be solved, which is he's adamant about giving the problem to the president and making the president see it the way that he sees it. Instead of saying, this bitch is fucking stupid. So I know this problem. So how can I get this problem solved since she is incompetent? There's this inability to grapple with the other person, how they come to you, for better or for worse. And that's an interesting, issue.
It's not even that she's stupid within this film. It's that fake president. Look, and if you're taking about call him Trump, right?
Yeah.
She's not stupid on how to get elected. Mm-hmm. In fact, she's a savvy political animal. Yeah. But going into that situation, wouldn't you know? And again, it's a movie. But what I'm getting at is similar to what you're saying. You don't go in there and just start talking a bunch of data to somebody like that. That person can't understand it. You should know that person can't understand it. I don't know if it's an art or a science or whatever, but there's a way to speak to people, and you have to know beforehand who you're talking to. That's all I was trying to get at. And that then you might actually be able to solve the problem.
Yeah, there's something interesting there, because it's a little bit like a different mode of existence, which is, okay, how about we use this person's strengths for what they are, okay? So maybe a different way that they could have gone about this is like, yeah, this person is a person in power, an egoist that seeks to maintain their power and maximize their popularity with the population, and they're good at it. How can that serve this problem? There's a different way to go about things instead of immediately coming to an obstacle because it's not the way that you would prefer to solve the problem, and then just beating against the obstacle until the obstacle becomes your main obstacle. That obstacle of the president becomes like one of the larger problems, which is, we're going to arrest you now. Like, now you can't even talk about this. It becomes a miniature war within the sphere of solving the greater problem. So there could have been a different way to say, okay, so we see what your strength and your interests are. Let's subvert that in favor of solving what we care about. Like, there's a way to do that with people instead of immediately like this, it has to be my way thing. But I mean, this is kind of like what, yeah, okay, it would be nice if that's how we approach things. But it's almost interesting to think about how fucking far removed that concept even is, to work with people's strengths, even though you don't like the way that they're doing something or the way that they are, to see how you can still kind of unify, at least on one level, towards a common goal. How fucking far that is of a concept that we have a movie that this is kind of just, it's not even a conception in the film. And fair enough, That's how they chose to make the film. But I don't see that in our culture even. That's something.
You don't see that in you don't, I mean, well, maybe this is something that we can give to the Silver Eye Society viewers as a way to approach communication with other people. Sometimes you should think about who you're talking to, and it doesn't always have to be confrontational. I mean, to me, that does seem kind of obvious. Like, you would go, now look, they set it up well because they're annoyed already. They've been flown on this plane. The general came in, it's funny, sold them snacks. They've been left waiting there. The son is obviously an imbecile and insulting. Though, within the movie, funny. He actually did a great job. I thought he was actually pretty funny. Another name I had heard, Jonah Hill, I think, but I didn't actually know exactly who it was. But anyway, good job. But you go in there to the president. You're talking, and yeah. Hey, you smoking? I like to smoke too. Can I, light up a cigarette, smoke a cigarette with the president, and let's solve some problems.